Rise and grind, folks. Guys, I am on the way to a no heat call. This is an existing maintenance customer. We came out here in the spring. I believe he had that compressor that was at like 500 PSI on the high side. And eventually we ended up replacing that AC unit. That was for the second floor, I believe. He called and said that the first floor heat stopped working. So I don't know what's going on, guys, but let's find out. I'll see you when I get there. Customer said that the heat just turned on 2 minutes before I got here. And this customer is competent with the thermostat. He keeps it at 68 on the first floor year round. He said it dropped to 62 this morning. And it's not a programmable thermostat, so we're ruling out the thermostat. We got ourselves a good old-fashioned intermittent problem, boys. Let me move some stuff out the way. I'll be right back. Guys, once again, customer has 3 units. This is a Carrier 58 MCB 2008 unit. So this thing is 17 years old. And this pump got replaced 2018, still empty. I'm just going through my checklist here. I just took the cover off the burner assembly here. Let's take a look at this sensor. I'll be right back. And look at this. Sensor still looks good. What I'm thinking is going on, I think this pressure switch is sticking. Guys, what I'm gonna do is I gotta get my manometer first to make sure that this inducer is pulling a good draft, and this will be a good place to start if my flame sensor is clean and there's no other internal or external safeties that will line up with what's going on. And unlike Linux, these Carrier circuit boards don't store recent events, but I can still check. I doubt it. But let me see something real quick here. Recall button, nope. Only an LED, no recall button, so. Oh well. Alright guys, let me get my manometer. I'll be back. Guys, we got our manometer hooked up. This tells me that my inducer is pulling proper inches of water column, which verifies that something was definitely going on with my pressure switch. Now guys, you heard me say this before, there is no way you can accurately diagnose pressure switches or inducer motors unless you have a manometer to check inches of water column. Reason being, most inducer failures are going to result in inducer motor not running, but some inducer motors could sound just like this and not pull any inches of water column. But you can't hear inches of water column, you can only see it with a manometer. So don't be a capital sleazeball. Make sure you guys are using manometers before you diagnose pressure switch and inducer failures. You got that? Put a thumbs up in the comments, in the chat if you understand. Capiche? Okay. Moving along, guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get another pressure switch and we're gonna do the heat maintenance. There isn't much to clean off this flame sensor, but I'm gonna arm out the igniter and I'm gonna make sure everything's okay with the igniter. Let me get what I need. I'll be right back. It's just like butter. Got our new switch in. And one thing I didn't mention is I verified that my flue pipe, my intake and my exhaust, I made sure everything outside was open. And the customer mentioned nothing got done near the flue piping. It would have been a dead giveaway. If the flue piping, whether it be the exhaust or the intake, were to be obstructed accidentally, this could 100% cause the pressure switch not to stay closed. Therefore, it's going to throw cold air and the heat won't work. So before you even get to the manometer part, make sure you guys are going through your checklist. Don't get too fixated on pressure switches or inducers. Make sure that whether this is at 80% or 90%, make sure there's no obstructions in the flue pipe and or the inducer. Go through your checklist and then you can resort to your manometer. All right, so moving along, I'm gonna get my meter And I'm still going to clean this flame sensor for what it's worth. Let me get to it. I'll be back. DM the other day, which came from a service tech. He said he just started a few months ago and he does a bunch of maintenances, which is exactly how I started. And he tells me they deal with a bunch of Linux and train furnaces. And he told me that he uses a chart to give him the expected range of igniters. But one thing he asked me, he goes, okay, I know how regular igniters test from 50 to 100 hypothetically, but he goes, with universal igniters, how frequently do you have to test them? Is it really necessary? The answer is, you probably have to look this up. It varies, similar to OEM igniters. This is a Glowfly, which is the bigger igniter. The hot rod, actually no, the hot rod is the bigger one. The Glowfly is the smaller one. This is a hot rod igniter. I'm pretty sure if you look this up, every single igniter has a tolerance, whether it be universal or OEM. You may have to look this up. To answer your question, I never actually had to replace a universal igniter. Most of the time, we're already replacing universal igniters on older furnaces, so the likelihood of two igniters going out on the same furnace, you might have to step back and figure out if something is actually killing the igniter, which is very unlikely, to say the least. But if you're on the maintenance, meaning if the system is working fine and you find universal parts, which is going to be the case moving forward, because a lot of customers are probably going to fix older equipment now instead of replacing it. If you run across a bunch of universal parts, still treat it like normal. Find the expected tolerance. If you don't already know it, look it up. If you can figure out the brand, not necessarily the brand from the system, but the brand of the igniter, Glowflies or hot rods, look this up on Google. And once you ohm it out, you can test that versus what the expected range is, and you can treat this like you typically would. But I mean, more or less, these igniters will typically work the same as OEM. You just still have to test them when you're on maintenances. So don't just assume just because it's a universal igniter that is newer. Still check it out and ohm it out like I did. I got about 20 to 24 ohms on this one, which is not bad. But never underestimate universal parts. Like I said, don't overlook things just because it's not OEM. Just test it like normal, and like I said, you guys should be good to go. But alright guys, I'm gonna put my Molex plug back on the igniter, and the basement is on, which rarely gets used. I looked at my notes, the inside of that furnace is still relatively new. The customer rarely uses this in the summertime. In the winter, he keeps this in the low 60s, like mid 60s. I want to say like 64, 65. But for the past 2-3 years, that condenser is probably the worst out of everything. The coil, condenser, and furnace. The furnace is still relatively in good shape. I'm pretty sure the EVAP has little to no wear and tear, but we'll definitely take a look at that too as well. But what I'm going to do is let me put this back together, and I got to fire this up. I'll be right back. Alright guys. She's fired up, and this one's the smaller of the three. Which is the basement zone, and this customer has a third one that does the second floor. But guys, tell you what, let me turn this off. Let me put the doors back on this one, and I'll be right back. And got this. Flame sensor is good. And look at the last time we replaced this filter. May of last year. And look how this thing looks. And this is my unpopular opinion. For customers to have more than 3 units, most likely you don't need all units maintained, because I can guarantee out of those 12 units you have, one of those units are probably going to be in a very confined space that probably gets heated and cooled by other areas. So if you have a reading room, a working room, whatever the case is, you don't necessarily need every single unit maintained. Here's what I like to tell customers. Always get the most important units checked out, meaning the bedrooms, the living room area, or the areas of the house that you spend the most time in. Make sure those units at a minimum are maintained. Everything else is an extra, or you can treat that on a case-by-case or as-needed basis. This basement area is going to be an as-needed basis because, once again, in the summertime, this rarely gets used because the basement is always cold. But in the wintertime, this thing runs to at least keep the pipes down here above freezing. But guys, that only equates to maybe a month or two out of the year. in regards to runtime. So with that being said, we don't expect much wear and tear out of this. So this is gonna be a quick maintenance, but let me get my meter. I'll be right back. All right, guys. My igniter tested at 50 ohms, which is great. And guys, this is a full circle moment. I remember that hour and a half job. They specifically dealt with carrier, ICP, some Linux, but it was mainly carrier. They had a huge carrier account at that time. So guys, I did hundreds of carrier tune-ups. And I remember these inducer motors, these $1,000 inducer motors that we put in in 2013, 2014, 2012. Guys, I remember all that, guys. But if I was recording at that time, I probably would have got fired, because I actually hated doing maintenances on these units. At that time, guys, what I hated doing was removing the collar so I can get to the flame sensors, and to each his own, guys. Like, so I had bigger hands, so like I need a lot more space to get to flame sensors behind intake collars. But I mean, the more I dealt with them, I just found my ways around it. I circumvented around most modern problems. But now, like I said, guys, any brand, it doesn't really matter. As long as we can get to the equipment, it's not really a big deal as far as fixing things. But guys, I'm definitely glad that I stuck around it long enough. But it's kind of crazy looking back on how I thought about these carrier units, cleaning them now. Like I said, I'm back here, 12, 13 years later. It's kind of wild. But all right, guys, let me put this back together. Let me stop yapping in the trap. I'll be right back. All right, guys, everything's rocking and rolling. I got to get the ladder and go up in the attic for the 3rd floor, but I got to put my phone on the charger. It's getting ready to die. But that's all I'm probably going to use on this video. You got 2 of the 3. You got the gist of what's going on here. I'm pretty sure the 3rd floor unit is going to be a little newer than the 1st floor, but definitely a little older than the 2nd floor. I know they use the 2nd floor unit often, but it's just this basement zone that really doesn't get much runtime. But guys, I'm about to pack up down here. I got to go back to the truck, and I got to get what I need to go in the attic. But there you have it. Triple heat maintenance, technically a no heat call on that carrier unit. We found an intermittent problem, pressure switch. We put a new pressure switch in, got that fired up, and the show goes on, fellas and ladies. Peace out. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.